Do you know that if you sleep on an idea and you refuse to take action, it might be too late? Also, if you overthink an idea for too long, it might be too late. If you think your idea is not unique and you feel like your idea is not worthy enough for people to be attracted to, even though that might be valid, but because of you thinking that way and you refuse to, and because of that you refuse to take action, then it might be too late for you to achieve whatever you so desire to achieve. Again, you might argue that, oh, I cannot execute the idea perfectly, I cannot, I don't have the capacity, I don't have the resources needed for the idea to come to life. And then after considering all of these parameters, you refuse to take action. Then, that thought process alone, which is not an idea in itself, would make it too late for you to execute your idea. In today's video, my goal is to make sure that everyone listening to me today would have a nudging in their spirit to take action on whatever idea God has placed in their heart that has been ruminating in their mind for so long, right? And as an individual, this is one thing I've struggled about for a long time, right? Until like most recently, when I started to change my approach towards life, right? Maybe 5, 6, 10 years ago, I would have an idea, but because of all of the things I've said before, or because I feel like my ideas are not unique, or my ideas are not worthy, or I don't have the resources to bring the idea to life, I tend to keep all my ideas as something that is not valid and I put it as a back burner, basically. But however, I've realized that when you don't execute an idea, someone else in this world that we live in would execute the idea for you, right? I was reading a book sometimes ago. I think it's called The Creative Art, and it's more or less for the creative people. And the book sort of like emphasized the importance of taking action when you have an idea in your head. So think of a graphic designer, a painter, right? If they have an idea and they refuse to carry their brush or go on Photoshop, for example, and then paint the idea that they have in their head. If you're a graphic designer, you know what I'm saying. After a couple of years or after a couple of months, in fact, it might be days, you will just be online and you see someone else executing that same idea, right? So earlier this week, I have like a newsletter I sent to all of my friends, and this idea of taking action bumped into my head just during the day. Typically, I usually compose the newsletter on a Sunday, then on a Monday morning I send it out. But for some reason, I didn't know what to say to everyone that Monday, and I was just on my decks midday. I think it was 12 noon, and something clicked, right? And I figured that one of the reasons why a lot of people are not doing a lot of things right now is not that they don't have an idea, but the thing is they have refused to execute the idea they have in their head just because of the constraints and the parameters they've allowed themselves to believe that is causing them to not take action. So I sort of like sent out an email to everyone, and I got feedbacks from like the people I sent it to, and they were like, "Oh my God, this is what I need to hear." So I just felt like today, let me just make a video about what I shared in the newsletter. By the way, if you want to join my friend group, you can use the link below to join our newsletter. I tend to sort of like motivate business people, entrepreneurs, creatives in my newsletter outreach, weekly. My goal is to do it every day, but right now my schedule is a little bit too tight. But I try my best to motivate each and every one of us, or each and every one of my friends, on a weekly basis so that we can all hold ourselves accountable. Accountability is very important, and I'm also going to be mentioning that later on in this video today, right? You need to connect yourself to people that can hold you accountable when you have a plan, you have an idea in your head that you're trying to execute, right? It is important that you have a circle of friends that you guys keep motivating each other or one another. So basically, that's what I do in my newsletter. I like to sort of like pioneer the communication, and it's just basically what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, or what has been discussed with one of my friends that I share with people. Or for example, if I read something interesting in a book, I tend to share it immediately with my friends so that I can also make sure that I'm taking action based on what I'm sharing, right? I was talking to one of my friends yesterday, and he was telling me that he started doing tutorials for people and doing sort of like teaching classes for some sort of like IT course, and he wants to take an exam, by the way, and he said, he feels he needs to start teaching people, because the more he teaches people, the more he sort of like gets better at the thing, right? So I believe the best way to take action, before I ramble too much, is to also be like a source of knowledge. So as soon as I'm consuming the knowledge, I share it with my friend group on my mailing list. Anyways, so I have some notes in my phone right now, and I just want to make sure I share them accordingly so that I don't ramble a lot, because I tend to like speak a lot and then I go off point. So I have some notes right here that I have put down and I want to share with us today. You see, so whatever excuse you have right now that's causing you not to take action is actually the reason why you're not taking action. And I think I've mentioned this before. If you're constantly making excuses that, I'm not good enough, I don't have the resources, my business idea is not valid enough, then you would not take action on that same idea. I'm not saying you should rush into taking action on an idea if the resources are not there, but what action are you taking to ensure that you get the resources that is needed for the idea to come to fruition? If you sit around and ruminate about an idea for so long, you wouldn't take the necessary action needed for the idea to come to fruition. In fact, for me specifically, once I have an idea and I sleep over it without sort of like documenting it down or having a plan on how I'm going to execute it, by the next morning, I think the idea is no longer valid, right? But there are several methods I've used to ensure that my idea stays consistent. My idea doesn't just die immediately I think about it. Even sometimes I'll be in the shower, and as I'm showering, so many things are popping into my head, or I'm probably just thinking about my day, and an idea just jumps straight into my head, right? So once that idea jumps into my head, I typically start repeating it, right? I start repeating the idea with the words of my mouth, so that by the time I get out of the shower, I'm on my phone typing out the idea and the strategies that has dropped in my head of how to execute the idea, right? You see, I came across a saying from a successful man this week, and it's so interesting to me what that man said, and I've never thought about action taking in that manner before. And I want to quote him verbatically, right? Or verbatim or something. My English is bad. Anyways, I'm going to get into character and say the way he said it. He said, "The only reason I am successful is that I move faster than everyone else," right? By the time others have thought about an idea, taken it to like a meeting and started to take action, I've already made 3 mistakes and found the most efficient way to a solution. You see, you cannot waste time, because there are action takers out there. There are so many people right now that have the resources that you don't have, right? They are in a better place. They are in a better place. they are well positioned for the idea to come into fruition, right? I have spoken to many people about the sort of like more or less like a technological idea that they have, and as soon as they start telling me about their ideas, and I'll just go on my phone and type the idea out, and believe you me, someone has already executed it in Silicon Valley. There's probably an app or a website that is already providing such services. You see what I'm saying? So the moment you have an idea and you don't take action to find out if it's going to work or not, then it's already too late, right? Like this businessman said, he said his thought process is, as he has an idea, he executes it. He makes his mistake, right? And it's okay to make a mistake, right? It's part of the lessons that you need for the idea to be successful. If you fail once, you fail twice, you fail the third time, you've learned 3 things not to do, right? And trust me, you can't keep failing at all times. You can't fail like 10 times, right? By the time you do the first one, you do the second one, you do the third one, or you use the first approach, the second approach, the third approach, and you failed. By the time you get to the 4th or 5th approach, you might actually be successful. But the thing is that once people fail once and they fail twice, they give up. They don't give themselves grace. They don't learn lessons from their initial failure. Some people also fail because they are not conscious of their first failure and their second failure, and then they repeat the same mistake they made in their first business, right? So for example, for myself, I've tried so many businesses and I failed. Now I know why I failed, right? I won't go that route anymore. If now I'm in a better position to advise people that are going into that particular trade or that particular sort of like business venture, I'm in a better position to advise them on what to do. In fact, I'll tell them not to do it, right? However, if I'm going to advise them to do it, I'll tell them the most efficient way that I have found and that has been successful for me in that business, right? So you have to sort of like consciously, right, work towards making sure that you break the idea or break the barriers of not taking action. You have to make sure that barrier keeps getting broken. I know that it's difficult to take action, right? And there are so many sort of like limitations ahead of us or in front of us, limitations like resources. You must actively work on yourself to make sure you break this barrier. If you don't work on yourself to break this barrier, it will be very, 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 very difficult. Let me give you an example. I used to attend a church in UK, and the church was a small church, right? And there was no sort of like keyboard player in the church. We were okay. There was a drummer. The worship was good, but there was just something missing, right? I couldn't play the keyboard. I have an idea of music from like learning in my sort of like elementary school, but I wasn't really good. I never seriously played the keyboard, but there was a keyboard in church, and I spoke to the pastor, and I was like, so the first barrier for me was that I didn't know how to play keyboard. I didn't have the time to learn to play the keyboard, right? And the third barrier is that I wasn't feeling the worship. So I'm like, how long do we have to wait before we get like a keyboardist in the church and all? So what I did was I spoke to my pastor, and he said, okay, yeah, you can. I asked him that, can I keep taking the keyboard home and then practice at home? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. All right. So I thought about it and I took action, right? The action that I took was to go collect the keyboard, even though there are several barriers on my way. I was in a position where I was a student. I had to work to survive. There were so many pressure on me. I wasn't married. I was a single person then. However, I had a lot of responsibility. I couldn't disappoint my parents. I needed to focus. I needed to do a lot of things, and I always have something that I'm doing at all times, right? So, but adding keyboard to it wasn't making sense. basically. So, but then I took action, just so I can bring flavor to the church, so to speak. And it's so interesting that I took this keyboard, I started practicing. I went online, looked for resources. Like I said, you have to look for resources. I went online, looked for resources. I started practicing playing the keyboard, trying to, learn music. It was difficult at first. It was difficult, extremely difficult at first. I'm not the best keyboardist right now, but I have an idea of how to play. But then I started learning the rudiments and I started playing in the end. I started playing rubbish in church. I started playing badly in church. However, fortunately for the church, there was a pianist that attended our service. The first Sunday, he heard my rubbish. The second Sunday, he heard my rubbish again. The third Sunday, he came to church and he couldn't take it anymore. He had to stand up and he approached me and he was like, "Yo, bro, I've had enough." I'm a keyboardist and So if I hadn't taken an action, to learn to play the keyboard and then play it publicly, I felt embarrassed. That's the honest truth. Even when I play and someone sings in a different key and I cannot play on the key, it was so embarrassing for me, right? To be playing off key, right? But I didn't care, right? Because there was nobody else to do it. If I get it right, yes, fine. If someone sings on C and I play on C, it goes smoothly. But if someone sings on F or F sharp, for example, I can play it. Or C sharp, I would just be there dumbfounded and try to melodious. I'll be sweating and everybody, people in the congregation cannot play as well. So they will just be looking at me weird, what's this brother doing, right? But at the end of the day, because of the fact that I took action, the keyboardist that used to be in the congregation and never wanted to commit to playing the keyboard for the church was compelled to come to me and play the keyboard, right? So that's the significance of taking action, right? If you don't break the barrier would always be there. One other thing is, even this my YouTube, there are so many barriers. Like, I don't have a lot of followers, I don't have a lot of subscribers. I could as well give up. But one thing that I said to myself is, I'll keep making this video even if it's only helping one person, right? I don't have to be famous. My goal is not to be famous. My goal is to share the things that have helped me elevate myself from where I am right now, from where I was to where I am right now. And I wish I'd come across videos like this. It would have speed up my career. It would have speed up, what I needed to do in life, how I needed to think, how I needed to shape my mind, right? It took me a while and it took me a lot of research to arrive at where I am today. And that's why I'm on this channel trying to share it to the world and share it to like someone that feels like my younger self, right? So some of the common reasons why a lot of people don't take action is that they are scared, fear of the unknown. You think that if you take the action, something terrible might happen, or people might not gravitate towards you. I had that too as well. Like I said, 5-10 years ago, I had this idea of coming online, and if you know very well, 10 years ago, there wasn't anything like social media influencing. There was just like people online playing, on Facebook, doing things, chatting on Twitter and all. However, I had the idea of coming online like this, speaking about the ideas or the things I read in books, right, on camera. But I was scared. I was scared of what people might think. I was scared of how people would see me, and maybe I thought people would dislike me for doing so, right? It took a while before I was able to take the action. So there would always be barrier. There will always be this fear barrier in front of you, no matter what you do. And the onus is that there is nothing you can do. No matter the sort of like action you want to take, there would always be that fear element in it. So that's one of the barriers. The second thing is insecurities. Like we are not good enough. Like I said, it ties to the first one. I felt like, who am I? My accent is bad. I can't speak phonetics English. I have even H factor. There were so many things. There were so many insecurities. I feel like maybe I'm not. What's the word now? Like my face, I'm not photogenic, right? People might not like the way I look. I have insecurities about my head because I'm bald. Would people complain? There were so many things. There's also the fact that I might not be able to speak coherently in front of camera. These things are all insecurities that I had to overcome, right? And I know that there are still a lot of people that are not taking action because of all of these insecurities. This insecurity alone can limit can limit what you're supposed to do. If I remember a saying that I saw, I think a couple of weeks ago, said the way I would paraphrase it is, if you do not take action, for example, you would never find out your way you can reach in life. You will never find out how your action would impact other people. Does that make sense? You would never find out if taking that action will turn you into a billionaire. So you are at a loss regardless if you don't take action, right? It's better you take the action and you lose than for you not to take the action at all. I used to tell my friend these things. I say I would rather take the action than regret not taking the action, right? Right now I'm regretting that I didn't take this action 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? Even though they were limiting factors, right? But right now I still didn't use that as an excuse not to go for what I want, right? I'm doing the thing I've set out to do, and this is me taking action. Now, because I've taken this action, the honest truth is I've come across a lot of opportunities from people that saw me online. I've done businesses with people that have seen what I can do and appreciate my art, essentially, and have connected with me and have done business with me, basically because I show up, right? So if your insecurity is what is stopping you, I will just tell you to forget about all your insecurities. They are there, they are still at the back of your brain, but just forget about it and take the action first. Take the action first and find out what would happen later, right? Take the action, stay consistent, and then you will see that you start, experiencing some difference in your lifestyle, in the result, or in your relationship with people, right? Because a lot of people would not know what you're capable of if you don't take the action, so to speak. And I'm speaking from like a content creation standpoint right now. It might be a business that you have an idea of doing. It might be selling beats online, selling books online. It might be opening like an Amazon seller's account, right? If you refuse to do it, you don't know if you would be a millionaire 2 weeks into it, 3 weeks into it, 1 year into it. So let go of your insecurities and then take the action. The final thing I have here is that imposter syndrome as well is one of the other things that won't let you take action. And I also think it ties to insecurity as well, right? Imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough. Who am I? What have I done? What experiences do I have, right? So for me, I think I saw a video of Ali Abdul, and he said, you're not starting or you're not taking action as an expert, right? You're taking action based on your experiences, right? So he was talking about this in the context of content creation, and he says that the reason why a lot of people don't come online and produce content is because they feel like they have to be a genius, they have to be an expert in a field to be able to advise other people. No. You are at an advantage if you've experienced something and you can share what you've learned based on your experiences, right? So don't let imposter syndrome stop you from taking action. At the end of the day, nobody cares, if you succeed or fail. The only person that is scared of failure is you yourself. Every other person in this world would even praise you for taking action, because a lot of people don't take action. They have an idea, they don't take action, right? I would also tie this to a scripture in Exodus chapter 4 verses 10 to 11. It says, Moses said to the Lord, "Pardon your servant, Lord, for I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue." Moses in this scripture was was saying he's not eloquent. He was projecting his insecurities. He felt he didn't qualify to be used by God. God had to remind him in verse 11 that am I not the one that created the mouth? Am I not the one that created the nose? Am I not the one that created the eyes? I am sending you on this mission. Don't worry yourself about all of these insecurities. Worry about my capability. And that's how I want us to think about action taking. God drops these things in our head, right? So it's left to us to execute, right? There's a scripture that said, "I have placed before you life and death." God will now say, choose life, right? Choose life, right? But at the end of the day, majority would choose to die. They would want to do the wrong thing rather than do the right thing, right? And it ties to action taking. God would drop the idea in your mind, but it's left to you to take the necessary action to bring the idea to life, right? And don't worry yourself about your insecurity. Don't worry yourself about if you are qualified or not qualified enough to execute the idea. Don't worry yourself about how you will get the resources to execute the idea. Worry yourself. I don't even think you should worry at all. I think you just have to be strategic on how the idea is going to come to fruition, basically, right? There are several ways to which you can tackle insecurities, and the first one is to pray about it, right? Pray about the idea. It's really important. And the reason why I say this is, if we look at Jeremiah, I think 3 verse 33 says, "Ask of me, and I'll answer thee, and show you great and mighty things," right? God in Jeremiah chapter 3 verse 33 reminded us to ask him. The Bible is just such a great book, and I usually reference this book a lot because I've used it as a guide for my life. I'm sure people that have seen my previous video would say this, that all my references, or majority of my references, I always speak it from the Bible, because if you can hack the scriptures, you can hack life, right? And this particular scripture, Jeremiah, I think 3 verse 33, says, "Ask of me, and I'll answer thee, and show you great and mighty things," ties into the fact that when we have an idea and we are confused on how to take action on it, the best thing to do is to pray about it. There is nothing as great as talking to God, who is your Father, about an idea you have in your head. By the time you have a conversation with God, you would realize that every of the limiting factors or every of the barriers that you've imagined in your head, God will start telling you, or will start showing you like ways out of it in the place of prayer. So if you have an idea in your head, go straight to God. If you don't know how to execute it, if you think you don't have the resources, if you feel insecure about it, just go straight to God in prayer. Have a conversation with God. I used to tell people, prayer is not about going into one corner, sitting down, and then praying and staying there for like 10 hours, right? You During your day, as soon as the idea drops, that's what I do. As soon as the idea drops, I start communicating to God. In my mind, I start talking to him that, oh God, what should I do? What should I do? How do I go about it? And then instantly you would see um, the sort of like sub ideas of how to resolve, of how to take the action dropping in my mind, right? So we need to ensure that as the idea drops, we go to God and ask God for direction. Direction is key. You can have an idea and you can go to the wrong direction, right? Going the wrong direction is still not bad because you will learn a lesson. However, you will arrive at your destination faster when you ask God for direction. The other thing is you also have to study and do your research. Every idea that drops in your mind requires certain things to be done, right? And a lot of time, the Bible also said, "My people perish because of lack of knowledge," I believe. And knowledge is important. You have to sort of like research, seek to find the necessary resource that you need to execute your idea. And there are people that have done something similar to what you're trying to achieve. Do the research to find out what they've done. Do the research to find out what worked for them and what didn't work for them. Sitting down and assuming that you can figure out all the necessary steps to arrive at your destination wouldn't be sufficient. Yes, that's the word. It won't be sufficient for you. You have to do the necessary work. You have to do the necessary research to arrive at your destination, or to enable you to take the necessary action to be successful. You have to be in a place where success is inevitable. And for you to put yourself in that position, you need to do your research. You need to, and I'm saying study with a passion, because studying is not just reading one book, one video here and there. You have to commit time to it. You have to study. You have to do your research. You have to read articles. You have to go online. If it's a business, take a business course online. There are a lot of LinkedIn business courses online. If it's drop shipping, there are a lot of videos on this YouTube that you can watch and would help you and guide you. You need to study. I cannot overemphasize the importance of study. After prayer, you still need to do research. God would only direct you, right? God will give you the ideas and direction. However, in order for you to be excellent, you need to do your research. Also, you have to play your part. As I famously like to say, practice makes perfect. You have to play your part. No matter what you do, you have to play your part. You cannot just pray about it. You cannot just do the research. You have to also take action. In order to become skillful in any instrument that you play in this life, you have to practice. The more you practice, the better you get at it. The same thing with action taking, right? Or with any business that you're trying to put your hand into, or with anything that you're trying to do essentially. If you want to become an expert, you have to keep practicing. You have to keep practicing. In fact, I read a book, I think it was 2 years ago. I can't remember the title of the book right now. And the person was saying that there is no such thing as being a genius. That the reason why some people are considered genius is because those people have taken the time to repeat an action, or to stay on that particular thing that they are regarded as a genius as for a very long time. They've committed a lot of hours to it. And she backed this up with a research. Like, she took like two different people, and one group was like, they were already like a subject expert in that particular field, and the other guys were new to it, and they put them in one room, and they left them to study the thing, right? At the end of the day, when they did like analysis of the two set of people, they realized that they the guys that were not genius initially now became a genius, right? And again, I know this is a subjective topic, but that's what I read, right? So I'm not saying you should become a genius at your field. What I'm saying is you have to play your part. You have to make sure you practice. You have to do it, fail, do it, fail, do it, fail. By the time, like I said, by the time you get to like the fifth or sixth time or seventh trial, you're already an expert. You can advise someone else that these are the things you shouldn't do if you want to succeed, right? Also, I have like a couple of acts or sort of like ways that I or plan that I wouldn't say plan, like acts that I use to take action, right? So the first one is I set a deadline, right? If I need to do something, if I know that, oh, I'm busy, I might not be able to do this thing, as soon as possible, I would set a deadline, put a time on my calendar, by this date I have to done with this, or I have to start. You need to set a deadline for yourself. And what I also do is I put like a weekly or a daily reminder on my phone, and then I see it. I wake up in the morning, I see it. That's the first thing I see. Okay, and the other thing is create a plan. This famous saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you need to plan. Once you set the deadline, the next step is go straight into plan. What do I need to do first? What do I need to get first? What are the necessary tools that can help me? If you don't plan, in fact, your failure is guaranteed, right? But I'm not saying spend a lot of time on planning. You can start with a draft. Just pick a pen and a paper, draft out what your plans are for the idea to come into fruition, and then stick that on a wall. You can write it on a board with the use of a marker or something. Just have a plan. Make sure it's a plan that is visible, that you can see at all times. The other thing is talk to friends. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I communicate with my friends every week. The ones that I can reach physically, honestly, 80 or 85% of our conversation, action-related conversation, business-related conversation, creative conversations. Rarely would you find us gossiping about the next person, right? We want to achieve a lot, right? So I have groups, different categories of friends, right? In each of these groups, we talk about different things, right? And majorly it's business related. So you need to surround yourself with people that can push you forward. You don't want to be in a place, or you don't want to be in a place where, or you don't want to surround yourself with people that would distract you from not taking action. You want to be in a place or be in the circle of people that are action takers, that would challenge you, right? My friends, they do challenge me a lot, right? Especially in my career. Before you say Jack Robinson, they will tell you, oh, I'm certified in this. You wouldn't want to sit down and be laid back and just want to not take action. You would consciously work on yourself and work towards taking action, so that the next time you meet with them, or you're having a conversation with them, you can tell them that, oh, I passed this certification as well, or took this action as well, right? So I surround myself with friends that enable me to take action. Oh, by the way, if you want to join my friend group, I'll put a link in the description below. You can join our mailing list, and you will get like a weekly communication from me, and you can reply back to me. You can ask me any question. If you have any question, just put it in the comments below. I would make sure to read and reply to you. And we can also even get on a phone call if it's necessary, right? Everything is free of charge for now. So the fourth thing is that you need to set yourself up for success, and I'm speaking in terms of finally taking action, right? Make sure that your environment position you to succeed, right? When you surround your friends, when you surround yourself with friends, make sure you are in a position to succeed. You cannot want to say, oh, I want to take X and Y steps and then be in A and B. I know it's abstract, but my point is, let me give you an example. If you want to create content online, you're like, oh, I don't have resources. Okay, I'll use my phone. All right, that's you setting yourself up first. Okay, what else? What else do I need? How can I position myself in a situation where I won't run out of ideas, or I would have the time to record my videos, for example, or have time to do my graphic design. You have to, in such situations, what I do is, I'm a very busy person. I still have a 9 to 5 basically. Aside from my 9 to 5, I have like a toddler in my house as well. I have to spend time with my family and all. But I've positioned myself for success because I've identified things that I can do during my day to break up each of my actions into bits and pieces. So for every video that I record, I have to script, I have to make sure my camera is ready for filming, and then I have to set up the camera. I have to choose the time and date to film. I have to edit what I filmed. I have to post what I filmed as well. So I have days that I've set apart for each of these. There is a day for scripting, there is a day for filming, there is a day for editing, and there is a day for posting, or there's a time for posting, right? Everything is strategically placed, right? I've positioned myself and set up myself for success. I don't just assume that I'll do everything in one day. That's me setting up myself for failure. I would burn out easily because I have a billion and one other thing that I do, right? And if I don't plan, or if I don't set up myself for success, or I don't position myself up for success, I would eventually fail, right? And I've had to learn this lesson from like multiple trials, right? If you want to stay consistent, that's the truth, especially in content creation. You have to plan, you have to create a schedule, you have to position yourself for success, or else you would fail quickly. You would get burnt out. You wouldn't find the motivation to even record anything. You would get to a point where people will not engage with your stuff, and you'll be like, it's not even worth it anyways. Why am I disturbing myself, right? But the Bible said the race is not for the swift. The things that are good don't come quickly, right? They take time. So when you are not seeing results, I don't think you are not seeing results. And this is what I mean. The time that you're not seeing results are times God is using for you to work on yourself and your skill. So that by the time you get the result, people will look at you as an expert. Nobody will look at your shortcomings, basically, previously. They will look at where you are right now and regard you as an expert. Nobody would think of all the mistakes you've made in your previous content, right? So you need to position yourself for success. Make sure your routine is aligned with what you want to achieve. So basically, in conclusion, I think to succeed, we need to have a bias towards action taking. We need to be conscious of it. Once we have an idea, give yourself a deadline. You need to have that bias. I heard someone else speak about the time it takes for them the time it takes for them to take an action. And she said, once they have an idea, they have 24 hours to take the action. If they don't take the action in their business within 24 hours, she's going to have a problem with her staff, right? There are so many things that limit us. So for example, someone say, we need to discuss about this, or we need to discuss about taking action on XYZ. Let's organize a meeting for next week. She said in our business, instead of saying physically, she will tell the person, let's get on Zoom right now and finalize. You're not available now? What about in 1 hour? What about in 2 hours? Everything has to be finalized within 24 hours. So you have to have that conscious bias towards action taking. You have to shorten the time between thinking about something and actually doing it. Don't wait forever. Don't relax. Don't think, oh, I'll take the action. I'll take the action. I just need to. Just make sure you have a solid plan. Make sure you're doing your research. That's you taking action already. Writing down the plan, doing research about it. That's you taking action already, right? So that by the time it's go time, you are fully ready and you are equipped. And by the time you do all of this research, you are more likely to take the action eventually. The faster you take action, the faster you may fail, right? And then ultimately succeed. So the faster you take action, the faster you may fail and then eventually succeed. So don't wait for so long. Take action today. As the saying goes, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great.